They may not be around long, but they sure are pretty while they are. Let's talk about temporary houseplants. What's up, fellow plant enthusiasts? My name is Dylan and this is Bane's Botanicals. Today we're going to be talking about temporary houseplants. So what is a temporary houseplant? I mean, I think that definition is different for everybody, but for me, a temporary houseplant is something that lives longer than a bouquet of flowers, but that lives shorter than all the rest of your houseplants, whether that's a couple of weeks or a couple of months, something that's probably not going to last longer than a year. And there are a lot of plants that fall into this category. And I will also say that some people have better luck with others. For example, poinsettias. Some people are able to keep poinsettias alive all year long. Is that an easy thing to do? No. Most poinsettias don't last much longer than Christmas. I mean, they might last you through January, but poinsettias are not designed to be in a house. They're not really house plants in the strictest sense because a temporary house plant usually has care requirements that cannot be met indoors. I keep hitting this thing and I'm going to push it forward just a little bit. So they just have requirements that can't be met, whether that's because they can't get enough light, or whether they need a very specific type of watering or humidity. It's not something that's feasible indoors. Now, I would say that maybe there's a couple of different categories here. I think that some plants that just probably die after a short period are maybe one category, and then there's certain plants that could be considered house plants, but their lifespan is such that it's just not very long. So a couple of examples of plants that just don't live very long, but you can keep them indoors would be things like hypostes or what are those called? What are the things called that are colorful? Fittonia. Fittonias don't really live that long necessarily. They can live longer, but their care requirements are pretty tough, right? They need a lot of water and humidity. Things like the waffle plants that you might see in little cups in like Lowe's and Walmart and stuff. There is also Pilea. Pilea doesn't tend to live that long. It can live a little bit, but it's not going to live much past a year or two. To me, that's a temporary houseplant. It's not something that you can continue on for a long period of time. Now you can propagate some things and continue them that way, but that's that's kind of cheating. But that's okay if that's how you want to do it. And then I think that the other category that I said before, these are usually the plants that you find in stores that are seasonal. So things like cyclamen and things like and cyclamen are beautiful. I was so disappointed when I found out cyclamen were more of like a temporary houseplant because the leaves on them are so nice. And the flowers that kind of bloom in the middle are pretty impressive. But also things like poinsettia, like I mentioned before. Poinsettias just, I mean, they're in the genus Euphorbia, which is kind of ironic because we think of Euphorbia, we think of like desert plants, but poinsettia is not. But they're just a little too difficult to continue all year long. I've heard of people doing it. I've heard of people getting them to where they're just green and then they get the red leaves to pop out again during the holiday season. It's work, right? So what about Easter lilies? We see Easter lilies for sale during Easter, and they don't really live much longer than that. You can keep them kind of outside during the summer, but then when winter hits, I mean, they're going to die. Easter lilies are also very toxic to pets, so especially cats. So just keep that in mind. During Valentine's Day, I'll see a lot of the little roses. They're sold in little cups or like little decorative dishes of some sort. Those roses really need to be put outside. They can't have the amount of light that they need met inside. And the same goes for some of those temporary pines that you see. I had a whole bunch come into work this year for the holidays, and they were about this tall, and they were, I think, maybe $10, and they were just cute little pine trees. I forget which kind they were off the top of my head, but you can't keep that inside without, it just needs to be outside. It needs the direct sun. There is no substitute for the sun. No amount of grow lights, no amount of sunny windows, nothing can substitute full sun outside. It can't happen. Like the sun is so bright. We don't realize how bright it is unless you guys do the research on it, but the sun is super bright. So there's no substituting that. And that's why you don't see people growing things in their house like, like an elm tree. An elm tree needs direct sun all the time, as much as it can get. You don't grow an elm tree indoors. The plants that we grow indoors as houseplants are plants that can survive with less light. Sometimes they still need a good amount of light, like you have to stick them in a sunny window, or maybe they do a lot better when we put them on the porch during summer, but they can still survive without that direct sun. Does that make sense? And even what is another one? I'm trying to think. Oh, I think that things like jasmine and gardenias, those are plants that you can keep inside for a little bit. Did I just spit? You can keep them inside for a little bit, but eventually they're going to want to be outside. Gardenias and jasmine, they flower for one thing, and flowering takes a ton of energy out of a plant. But they're not quite tropical, but they're lower, on the, what is it, like the climate, I forget what, the growing zones. They're a lot lower on the growing zones. They need to be, for example, in the southern United States. So that means that they need a lot of extra light. They need a lot of extra warmth. It's really hard to keep a gardenia or a jasmine over winter. I mean, that's where the temporary status for some of our kind of flowering shrubs come in, because we can't overwinter them when we're too far north. Things like hydrangeas. You can keep hydrangeas inside for a little bit, but eventually it's not going to work because they're not getting enough light. It's probably going to get too cold in the wintertime. It just doesn't work. So this isn't like, I'm not like talking trash on temporary houseplants. Temporary houseplants are beautiful. A lot of them are really interesting. Jasmine is one of my favorite plants. I love jasmine. I love the look of it. I love how it smells. It's without a doubt my favorite smelling flower. Gardenias are really pretty too. But I wish that we could keep stuff like that indoors, but we can't. Unless you have like a beautiful, enclosed space that's nothing but glass. I know I've been in one house in particular that I can think of that had a beautiful sun room like that. It was all glass windows, and you could probably grow a lot of cool stuff in that. When I buy another house, I think I want something like that for me, so that I can kind of experiment a little bit more with stuff like that. But my point is, it's good to address kind of what is temporary and what is not temporary. What can we keep for a long time and what can't we keep for a long time? And sometimes it's fun to try to keep things for longer than they're, I don't know, meant to be kept indoors, just to see. Maybe it won't work out, but it's still fun to try. And I think that's why some people keep poinsettias alive all year long. They like that challenge. But I can tell you, even in the retail setting, all the poinsettias that I just threw away, they were not looking too hot, and they need to be babied. I have this plant here. I've been talking for 10 minutes and I haven't even addressed this. Do you guys like the little water? I've showed you guys this before, I think, the little plastic cloud. It's pretty cool. You just kind of put the water in the top and it'll start to drip out like rain. Kind of slowly, but I don't know. I think that's pretty neat. What I need, or what somebody needs to make, is a big one of these things. So you can dump like a whole gallon of water in it and just have it like rain down onto your plants. That'd be so tranquil. Anyway, I have this here because this is a Ficus pumila. And Ficus pumila is a houseplant. And it's a houseplant that would fall into that category we talked about, where maybe the lifespan isn't as long, or maybe because the care requirements are a little more finicky, it's not something that just lives very long indoors. But I've had pretty good success with this. And the reason Ficus pumila is kind of tricky is because it needs to be kept consistently moist and it needs humidity. So I actually keep this by my kitchen sink and I put my finger in the soil frequently. It's actually one that I've gone out of my way to make sure that I don't underwater, because you guys know I'm a little bit of a perpetual underwaterer. I really put my plants to the test sometimes. But this one, I mean, yes, it is missing a couple of leaves, as they tend to do, just because it is a ficus. Ficus plants tend to drop leaves. It's just how they are. But I mean, look at, actually, let me just pick this up. Look at some of these leaves on this side. I mean, look at how beautiful those white edges are. This is Ficus pumila. The variety is called Sunny, and it has just these perfectly snow white margins on it that are just, I just think it's gorgeous. And I think the leaf shape on these, because of the variegation, the leaves are a little bit like distorted. Variegation will distort like the shape of leaves. So if you've ever seen, for example, an albo Epiprimnum Palladium, the leaves don't come out the perfect Epiprimnum shape. Their growth is distorted by that variegation. And some people love that. Some people love that look. I personally don't like that look on Epiprimnum. I think it makes it look like there's something wrong with it. But on here, for some reason, it works for me. So, but if I wasn't babying this, it would have turned to ash a long time ago, because Ficus pumila is just, it's just a little more finicky with its care requirements. And I think a lot of people will buy these because most of the time they're maybe like $4 or $5 in like a little cup, and it's something that might look pretty for a little bit. Maybe you have company coming over, and then after a few weeks the thing's dead, like just because life happens and we don't always take the best care of our plants. But I'm hoping I can have this one for at least a while, and I have had it for a while. I think I bought this one, I can remember where I bought it, but I don't remember. I think I was in Indiana. I was visiting home, and it was probably over the summer, maybe spring. So I've had it most of the year, and it's been doing well. It has put off a lot of new growth. I'm rambling about Ficus pumila. We've already done that. But anyway, yeah, if you enjoy a challenge and you have a house plant that you feel like is a temporary house plant, go for it. Give it a try. See what you can do. Put that thing in the sunniest window. Put it under grow lights. Do whatever you can do to get it to survive. If it needs a ton of humidity, you know, if it's something like a carnivorous plant, or Selaginella, like that moss, that rainbow moss you see sometimes, that's not really meant to be outside. That's meant to be in a terrarium. When I say outside, I meant like outside of a terrarium. You can't really keep that stuff just in your house because it dries out so easily. But go for it. Go for that challenge, because I think that part of the fun of this hobby is experimenting. And I've said in a video at some point previous, I want to access your inner botanist. I want you guys sometimes to think like scientists. I mean, taking care of plants is a beautiful, zen, very fulfilling hobby. But at the end of the day, we're all botanists on the inside. We're doing this hobby and learning and figuring things out that most other people who don't take care of plants don't know about. So do those experiments. I know some of you already do. Miss Betty and her hydroponics, and Dragonite Spam and his grocery shopping seeds and everything. Like, do it. So yeah, I think that's all I have about temporary houseplants. I know that I rambled a little bit, but let me know some other plants that you guys consider temporary. And if you have some experiences where you've managed to keep things alive much longer than they rightfully should have, let me know, because I'm curious. I want to hear what you guys have done yourselves. Another quick side note about ficus, the de facto ficus, the Ficus carica that actually grows the fruits, those are not really considered houseplants either, because they're just something that they're really supposed to be planted outside so that they can fruit, like a patio plant. But then you have to get into something like overwintering the thing inside and keeping it. Overwintering is, you got to have the right setting for that. I haven't done a video on that yet because it's not for the novice plant care person. Like, you you really have to strategize how you're going to keep this plant alive over the winter so it can survive. But anyway, that's it. I'm done, I swear. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for your likes and subscribes. The thing keeps touching me. Thank you for your comments and for being interactive with me and making this such a fun hobby to partake in. And I hope that I've been helping you guys a little bit, even if it's just discovering a new plant you liked or something, or even if it's just, I don't know, having some fun watching me ramble about plants. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Until the next video, I will see you very soon. Thank you.